peace and security is set to feature high on the agenda at the upcoming African Union Summit. South Africa is part of the SADC mission currently deployed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to deal with instability there. SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is watching developments and standing by with an important discussion with the Defence Minister. It'll be interesting to hear the kind of posture South Africa is taking this time around, Khayelihle, given, of course, in some ways, the increasing demands for the military, at least those who've deployed to some of these countries.
Well, undoubtedly, and quite a very important moment, as we know that South Africa, for the longest time, has been such a contributor to the peacekeeping missions. You look at the current situation in the eastern parts of DRC, there are still some challenges in that part of Congo when it comes to the instability. But also, recently, we saw, for example, with Summit in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, where there was a challenge of terrorism, where they were trying to repel the terror attacks. But to really just look at comprehensively the picture and also how SANDF is doing, we're joined by the Defence and Military Veterans Minister Motshekga. Once again, Minister, welcome to SABC News.
No, thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Minister. So first and foremost, Minister, let's look at that current mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We know that it's a massive challenge and it requires enormous resources to really sustain it. So far, how is it going so far?
You're quite right. It's a very important mission for us as a country, as the region, but also as a continent, to keep the SADC, because basically we've been the most stable region in Africa. If you look at what was happening in East Africa, West Africa, we've been the most stable. And therefore, it's been very important to make sure that we keep that stability and deal with any threats that might just destabilize the region itself. It's not an easy mission because it's been raging forever. It's not a cheap mission because the rebels are really armed and it's fought from different fronts. So it's not only the Congolese who are fighting amongst themselves, but the battles are outside even Congo. But it's a very important mission that has to be supported by us as the region, also us as a country, as part of really peacekeeping for our region. So it's not an easy mission, but it is a very important mission.
And obviously, Minister, looking at the impact of the current fiscus in the country, I mean, surely quite an array of challenges that we face on that front. I would imagine sustaining it, just in terms of the resource mobilization, it's quite a challenge, really, to make sure that they are well equipped, especially because from time to time you get these reports that they are ill-equipped.
Fortunately, it's not a South African mission. It's a UN mission, so we're not the only country that is there, and we are not only going to our resources only as they were contributing towards a mission of SADC. So it's us, Tanzania, Malawi, which are troop sending. Other countries themselves contribute towards the mission, those that don't have the soldiers. UN also contributes, but because we send a bigger number, because of our size, then we have to, from our own fiscals, add on the mission in a sense that we have to, if our boys go there, we have to give them allowances of being away from home. But it's not a South African mission, it's a UN mission, it's a SADC mission, it's an AU mission. And it does get support from elsewhere. We discuss it regularly at SADC about what is happening, so which means even the thinking process, it's not only South African. The appointments of people who are leading, it's not South Africans, it's the SADC which is leading the mission.
And just so far, Minister, I mean, what are you getting in terms of the progress, in terms of making sure that they are making inroads, in making sure that they're making advance, and dealing with this particular issue? Because they took over from the East African Brigade that was previously deployed in the DRC. What are you getting on the ground?
We're getting good progress. We'll be visiting quite soon with the Chief of Defense, but also I received on Monday the head of peacekeeping from the UN. So there is progress, there is prospects of really a settlement. Angola is really negotiating between Rwanda because it's alleged to be also very central to some of the difficulties that are there, and also the Congolese. So at at the peace process, there is lots of progress, and we're not there to fight whoever, we're there to maintain peace, and that in itself helps the stability because they know they can't just do as they wish. There are peacekeeping forces who are there to support the Congolese government. So in terms of stabilizing things, it's working a lot, and we really keenly looking at the peace process led by Angola to make sure that there is a negotiated resolution to the matter.
And Minister, we saw the recent state visit by President Lorenzo, where there was that big announcement that they'll be meeting and just through the Luanda process. What would be your appeal to the warring factions? I mean, obviously, this is a longest running conflict in the African continent with incredible ramifications when it comes to the humanitarian disaster on the ground.
You know, just war is so ugly, and I think as much as you understand that other countries are hungry in the jungle, so they have to go hunting, but you don't go and hunt in somebody's house and think that there'll be peace. And maybe it's to find ways, and that's the other thing which I hope it will help to say, yes, we're aware that you're a strong country, you're hungry, you have an order book of these products of us, don't steal them. Let's have a concession. I really do hope that we, as SADC, will be able to assist each other, because as long as the other, these lions are hungry, they'll come hunting in your house. And that's what is happening with the DRC. Because of their blessings about minerals have become a big problem for them, because they want what is there for their own kids to go and look after their children. So they have to come and create all the difficulties that are there. And I really do hope that part of the peace process will even to help manage the root causes that creates this jungle exercise in the DRC. Because the main thing is to really go and get the resources. It's not about anything else. It's about DRC resources, and that is putting them into a difficult situation. But it's underdeveloping the whole region. So we have to leave our work to go and support them, because we can't leave them unsupported. They themselves have to be running cat and rat battles, being to go and really cause difficulties. So as SADC, we need much more than that. As Africa, we need a much stable continent. The world is really passing us. We are blessed with resources which will reach a stage where we can use them. I mean, Europe, different countries with different abilities, they support each other. You will get Germany specializes in cars, but they get parts from other parts of Europe. Even your small countries contribute towards the motor industry of Germany, and as a result, they all are able to live. And I think that's where we should reach a stage. We should reach that stage as Africa to say, yes, we all have to live, what contributions we can make. Your country is developed in terms of skills, let's use your skills. And I think that will help us if we look at how Europe, with these small countries which don't necessarily have big resources, but are able to survive.
Minister, let's broaden the scope a little. I mean, obviously the AU Summit is coming up in a matter of days or so. I would imagine a number of hotspots in the continent, whether the situation in Sudan, but also in South Sudan, where we saw recently the C5 ministers. We know South Africa is part of that process. And we talk about the issues of intra-Africa trade. So peace and security remain very key in terms of really reaching that point.
Yeah, South Sudan is also another sad one. I think it's so sad that I think we even are too scared to talk about it. But if you get reports of what happens there where women give birth on the road whilst running away from war, I mean, the report I was getting from our diplomatic attaché in South Sudan is very scary. And you really, as a human being, you can't have a clear conscience and say, well, it's their problems, they should resolve it. As a human being, you have an obligation also to lift. But there are limits to what you can do. And what we are doing, which I again hope it will yield results soon, so that there's peace and stability, is the process that are underway in terms of supporting them to go back to normality, to have a constitution, to go for elections and establish a stable government. Because if you don't have a stable government, all these other rebels are going to do as they wish unless you have a stable government. So it's to really assist them to establish a proper government, which then can have systems to protect the people there. But the reports I was getting recently are very scary, and they just show the urgency and the importance of that the AU must again reflect on what we do as the continent to help Sudan.
And maybe just coming closer to our borders, Minister. I mean, obviously now there's a bit of a sigh of relief in Mozambique. The inauguration of President Chapo, the announcement of the new cabinet, but there's still that simmering tension that is still there with Mr. Mondlane saying, well, he's suspending the protest and stuff. But what's South Africa's position in terms of support for Maputo? I mean, this is your key trading partner through the Maputo corridor and stuff.
No, neighbor, and a historical neighbor, family. I mean, we speak in the same languages with people in Maputo. So you can see that it's your western borders or your colonial borders which are separating us. So a part of the same thing with Maputo, but then with Maputo, we're also as I say, we're just too close for comfort, economically, socially, and so many other things. So that when there's a problem in that area in Mozambique, it's our problem. It's our big problem economically. I mean, I felt sad when they were blocking borders, remembering that when we had that problem in South Africa during the 2020 riots, we lost lots of clients. People started exporting their goods through other ports in Namibia, and if people have diverted their business, it's not easy for them to come back. So if you're going to disturb a corridor, which is your lifeline, don't think the exports are going to come back the next day when Mondlane is happy. If there are still some simmering tensions, they see the threats, they are going to take a long way and go to Richards Bay. So also, even for your own good, there are things that you don't do. I mean, our countries are very fragile, our economies are very fragile. You just don't interfere so much on something for individuals, either any political party or individuals, because the impact is bigger than the party, it's bigger than individuals, but it's really affecting the country and its neighbors. I mean, it's affecting Zimbabwe, it's affecting us. So I really do hope that if you lose, you lose. It's painful. We've lost. We have to accept that we have lost electoral majority. And you don't then lift your party above the nation. We have to say at the end of the day, we lost our majority as the governing party. What do we do for the good of the country? And I do hope that Mondlane and his people will know that Mozambique is bigger than them. And they really, for the sake of Mozambique and everybody else, even neighbors, as I say, what happens in Mozambique impacts on us. You can see the traffic there, that we're just one country divided by a border. So it impacts all of us, and I really do hope that the process led by SADC and Mnangagwa will really help them resolve, because the stakes are too high.
And I suppose, Minister, I think the frightening part was the escape of the inmates. Quite a number of South Africans were really on tenterhooks and really just wondering what's going to happen.
I could see them with my eyes at night just going through the bushes. Because as I say, we're just one country artificially separated. And when they said they've escaped, I said, no. I can imagine which direction. They were going to go to Swaziland, come here, go to Malawi, and you don't know what kinds. I mean, we have our own problems. We were busy fighting with the Zamazamas, who the majority are Mozambican. So we just have a bigger problem now with the criminals going, as I say, coming to us, going to Swaziland, going to Mozambique. And as I say, it could be hardened criminals if they can escape from prison. So it's not your ordinary criminal. And because I said they even took arms. They took war. I mean, AK-47s are war. Rifles are not your ordinary shotguns. They are for war. And to take them out of prison and take them to the streets was not only tenterhooks, it was very terrifying for me.
Minister, before I let you go, obviously the issue of illicit mining, it's quite a very colossal challenge for South Africa and many other countries as well. Just from the point of view of your department, what are you doing in terms of making sure, for example, that you intensify the operation? For example, to make sure that you work with the likes of BMA to make sure that our borders are well secured, but also even at the point where you have these disused and abandoned mines, where you're trying to really just have these operations. So how's it going so far in terms of really just heightening these operations?
Legally, policing in the country is the responsibility of police. So your illegal mines, all we will do as the army is to support the police, because that's their space, their terrain. They're the ones who have to lead in terms of securing the mines, any security-related matters in the country. So that the lead department we follow, but as you correctly say, even not from a defense point of view, it's very scary. I'm still wanting to check. I'm speculating, Khaya. I have no facts. Whose bodies are these? There were instances where we're told that girls were kidnapped into the mines. I still want to know, of those 51 bodies, what is the gender profile of those people? I'm just scared that it's bigger than just taking our economy, but it's about people's lives, it's about gender, it's much more dangerous, it's much more scary. So we have to do as a country to protect our women, to protect, because it could be that it's those 51 are men. It could be, but I want to know what happened to those girls that are said to have been kidnapped into the mines. So let's get the gender of the bodies that were found.
All right.
Just to see the seriousness thereof.
All right. Minister, thank you so much indeed for your time. So obviously, plethora of issues really to explore, but time is really not on our side. So I had a very important conversation for South Africa. As we know that the road to the African Union summits, the issues of peace and security are very key. And South Africa has been a very important partner in the African continent when it comes to peacekeeping, the peace maintenance, but also really supporting a number of war-ravaged countries. I mean, we saw that C5 ministers being held in Juba in South Sudan, especially after the postponement of the elections, but quite a very clear assurance that on the margins of the African Union summit in Addis Ababa, there'll be a lot of discussions around this issue. So with that, back to you in studio.
All right, Khayelihle Khumalo, thanks very much indeed. A wide-ranging interview with the Defence and Military Veterans Minister there in Pretoria.